Hi, everyone. I'm here with Gary Ingle of Candy Coated, and he worked on a recent project for us, which is the ad that runs during the Maxon presentations. So Gary and we've never really met in person. However, my husband worked with him in Tennessee back in the early to mid '90s, probably it was, and
Back
my
in the
husband.
day.
Yeah, my husband's always telling me, "Oh, Gary, he's so talented. He's like the best Cinema 4D artist." Finally, we had a project where I could reach out to you, so that was kind of cool. I know that you were under like a tight deadline with us, unfortunately, because we were waiting for approval and all that kind of thing. And then when we got to it, we were like, "Oh, we only have a couple of weeks to work on this." So,
Yeah.
and I know we presented you with a rough script, and it didn't give a lot of direction to you, we should say. Do you want to talk about the creative process after you saw the script?
Yeah. I actually, you make it sound like you guys did not have a brilliant concept and idea to just hand it off to someone to do it. But you had a good idea and you had a good foundation. And you guys were very flexible and easy to work with. Actually, you're kind of a dream client.
Oh.
because you know the process and you know how things work. You know how software can sometimes, I don't know, act up on a day or so. So you were able to roll with the punches just as I did. And I was able to be completely transparent with you guys. So taking the concept that you guys had and then twisting it around just a little bit to meet some of the things that I actually enjoy creating. And I know that's selfish, but that's kind of how I roll with it. And it allows me to be passionate about it and, create something that I hope is entertaining and informational in the end. So the idea of showing art throughout history, showing the different masterworks throughout time, but then ending up in a more modern setting, showing an artist using not even just modern tools, but futuristic tools. And even since we did that project, AI has improved, tenfold since then. If anybody's worked with AI, they know that, sometimes it has trouble with human limbs and fingers and that kind of thing. So that's kind of one of the jokes if you watch the spot. The AI is trying to copy what the human is doing, which is this big artifact sculpted hand out in the middle of a field, maybe hinting at some sort of former population that inhabited the place. So the AI is looking over at it, trying to create the same thing. And as we know, it struggles and comes up with a hand with 12 fingers. We had a couple of hurdles. As you mentioned, A was the time frame for production for the project. The other was just how do we show AI's creative process versus keeping the human in the equation? And I think we got to that, but that hurdle is we only have a 30-second spot. How do we squeeze that idea into a 30-second spot?
Yeah, I love it. It just when I saw the end, I was like, oh, he nailed it. It's so good. I just love that end scene. It just looks so fun. But let's talk about what kind of things that you did because you had such a short time frame that you were able to change, or different techniques that you used that you knew would be faster.
So 3D character work, there will be differing opinions on this, but I think that's kind of like the pinnacle of technicality in 3D animating. I do it, and I've done a bit of it, but in such a short time frame to not only do all the other parts of the project, but then also do 3D characters. I just didn't think we had honestly the time frame to do it. So, but that's the excuse, right? But the end result is I actually love, and I lean on it a lot, I love putting 2D characters in 3D environments, but making them feel rooted and they feel like they're part of the environment. And I think we sold that. I think it happened. So, I relied on traditional two-dimensional animation. I wouldn't say traditional in the sense that it was cell animated. I didn't do frame by frame. I did do a rig. I used Moho Studio Pro to do the character. And, that allowed me to create just a few pieces of artwork and basically rig the arms and face and head and stuff so that it was more of an animation process rather than a drawing process, just because of the time frame. But mixing that with the 3D renders and then adding some environmental fog and haze and that kind of thing to make it all kind of come together, I just love that. That's my happy place.
Yeah, it's cool. And when I first saw your characters, I was like, oh, this reminds me of gorillas.
I love the characters in the Gorillas videos. They're kind of lifeless because they're zombies. They've got the white eyes, but there's something that has a cool bit of life in those characters that I really like. And the style, I don't know how to describe it, but that was just what popped in my head when we talked about this project. I wanted it to be a little grungy, a little bit off. I mean, Gorillas, that's grungy, and then the background in the lab, the studio lab, that inspiration came from the game Machinarium. It's such a beautiful, immersive world, even though it's only 2D, just the textures and the style of the characters and the flowers and plants and everything. It really has inspired me a lot over the years.
Let's talk about the portal.
So I played a whole lot of adventure games. Games like Tomb Raider, that it's not just about puzzle solving, but it's actually about exploring, and you're kind of living your life through this character, going through their world. And that kind of stuff is just exciting to me. It's exciting to me in the sense that when I'm creating something 3D, like that cave that we go through, when I first finished up the texturing on that and saw the first 3D render of it, I literally kind of giggled out loud. Because I'm a little kid. I love exploring things and creating worlds and stuff that I can explore, that didn't exist before. So through that process and kind of being inspired by games, Tomb Raider was full of puzzles, and there's been tons of other games since then, but that was really kind of the first one that did that. So I was thinking, how can we go from this cave setting into this future setting? We can't really do it as a slow transition some way because we don't have much time for the spot. I was thinking, well, it needs to be like almost instant. Well, can we go through a portal? Well, yeah, that's cool, but let's not just make a portal appear and then we go through it. That's kind of cheesy. I thought, well, shoot, we're in a cave. Maybe there's some artifact on the wall that has a puzzle that has to be solved. So that's where I came up with the concentric rings. And another fun thing about this spot is there's a lot of details in it that I think will get missed if you just see it one time. On that ring are icons from the software that we all use to do animation. It's got icons from Photoshop, Illustrator, Cinema 4D, After Effects. I think I even may have thrown in some Insidium X Particles icons in there. So you've got the rings with the icons. The little spaceship comes out of the wall, which, again, that's one of those 2D versus 3D things. It started out 2D while it was on the wall, and then I actually broke it out into a 3D model. It shines on the Toolfarm logo in the middle hub of that portal, and that makes the other rings light up. Then it opens up and we go through. A hat tip to the creators of those games that have created those experiences that have influenced, so many people, myself especially.
Yeah, and a hat tip to the developers of the software we use to build all those games and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love little subtle things like that. And I know most people won't catch it if they only see it one time. But since this is playing in front of those, those MoGraph events and that kind of thing, I hope people will see it a lot and start to realize the details that are in there.
Yeah, I hope so too. I love the little robot character. He has personality. You wouldn't think he would because he's so simple as far as how many pieces he moves, but yet he has personality.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing too, the way that came to be. And that one is actually, fully 3D. That's fully textured and rigged. But because it's a robot, it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of organic movement in that.
Mm.
Um, but to come up with the concepts for that, I had a few ideas, but then I thought, this spot is about AI and how humans still need to be in the process. You know what? I'm going to use Stable Diffusion to come up with some concepts for this robot. And I let it churn out about 200 of them. There were 3 or 4 that really caught my eye, but there was one in particular. I just looked at it and I thought, what is that? It just had a little round thing at the bottom and a stick at the top and like an eyeball. And that wasn't something I could use, but it gave me the inspiration for what we did end up doing. And I loved the email I got from you when I first sent the style frames, and it had the robot in it. You looked at it and your response was, wow, that robot's interesting. Do I see one big eye and a proboscis? And I thought, yes, that's exactly what I want. I want it to be quirky and kind of weird,
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about your background? How did you get started in motion graphics and video and that sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I actually went to school to study music, classically trained musician, and then actually transferred to a school in Tennessee to study recording industry. Quickly learned that that wasn't for me. So I wrapped up with school and everything and ended up taking a gig at what used to be called Kinko's. Now is known as FedEx Office. And you mentioned your husband earlier as my friend. That's where we met. I actually hired him. Yeah, I hired him in the computer services department because I was the computer services manager at the time. How I got that job, I honestly couldn't tell you. I didn't have any computer experience at the time. I just went in and I guess they liked my vibe. Anyway, I was sitting there doing flyers and resumes and brochures. But when I wrapped up that stuff, because we had the whole Adobe Creative Suite, I was looking at the other software like, oh, there's video editing software in here. Oh, there's animation software in here. Ooh, what's After Effects? What is that? So I would spend at least 30 minutes to an hour during my shift just poking around in that software between doing other stuff for work. And over time, I started figuring it out. So I guess my background is that I'm self-taught.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was before, YouTube was really a thing. It may have been around. I don't think it was, but it was before it was, popular enough to have tutorials and stuff on it. So When I say self-taught, I'm not talking pulling up YouTube and learning how someone did something. I am literally opening the software and going, oh, what does this button do?
Yeah. Same. So, that's how I learned it as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Now, what I have found, I've been doing this a long time, that there's still like some fundamental things in the software, not conceptual wise, but just like specific to software that I go, oh, I didn't realize you could do it that way. That'll save me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that still happens from time to time.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to let us interview you. I know how busy we've all been so busy lately. It's been a busy summer, so
it really has. I'm not going to complain.
And I really appreciate your work on the ad for us. I just love it. It's so much fun.
I'm really happy with it too, and I'm really glad that Dan referred you to me. And glad that you gave me the chance to do it. It was a lot of fun, and I hope we get a chance to do it again.
I do too. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep. Thanks.